Good morning, world. I am Judy, your web based therapist, making therapy accessible and convenient for our clients in Florida and New York, and of course, sharing information worldwide. Today, I'd like to take a moment and talk about 5 misconceptions about ADHD medication because there's a lot of stigma around it, and a lot of times people are discouraged from taking the medication, and a lot of times people are ashamed out of taking the medication. So today, I want to talk about 5 misconceptions surrounding the ADHD medication, particularly the stimulants, which have been the target of a lot of the hate. But before I get into that, I want to take a quick moment and say if you are subscribed, thank you so very much for being a part of our world. And if you are not yet subscribed, please take a moment and click the subscribe button below so that you can become a part of our wonderful world. And remember to tick the bell so that you are notified when I post new videos so that you don't miss anything. And of course, if you'd like to purchase 1 or 3 of my books, there's also a link below that will take you to a website that will show you all the different options of places where you could get 1 or 3 of my books. Okay, let's get back to it. The first thing that people that I've heard about ADHD medication is not true, is that it's a gateway drug, or that children or people who take the ADHD medication are more prone to it makes you more prone to addiction. That is not true. Although or especially in recent years, there have been people who have abused ADHD medication without a prescription. Those were not the people with ADHD who are prescribed and using the medication under the supervision of a professional. Those are people that were just, I don't know, playing and just enjoying or doing whatever they do with with any drugs that people take without that they shouldn't be taking. But ADHD medication itself is not a gateway drug. It is not, and it does not make the person prone to addiction. One thing that does happen though is that because of the stigma surrounding ADHD medication or surrounding medication for mental health, a lot of times people try to wean themselves off that medication and then they start self medicating with other things. That would mean things like maybe alcohol or other drugs that are more acceptable than prescribed drugs. So sometimes people do get away from the prescriptions and when they start to struggle, they may start to use other things. But it's not because the ADHD medication made them prone to addiction. It is because that society's closed-mindedness made them get off the medication that they should be on, that they need to be on. And now because they're struggling, they're using other things to try to self-medicate. Two, it turns people into a zombie. I've seen what they are referring to. This is why in my video when I talked about 5 must-haves for ADHD, I talk about the importance of having a good psychiatrist because that's how you get the right dosage of the right medication for you. Not all the medications are for everyone. And sometimes a person who is over medicated, especially children, sometimes when they don't have the right advocates to make sure that they are getting the right medication in the right dosage. Sometimes they just keep upping their medication, not realizing that hey, this is not working for this child. Or when they are getting maybe the medication, but they're not getting the behavioral help, the behavioral resources to help them manage. So, and people keep upping the medication instead of adjusting to figuring out, hey, how which medication works for this child at what dosage. It does not make that. It does not make you turn you into a zombie. It doesn't that catatonic situation. I have seen it happen, but it is a result of someone not taking the time to give a person or a child usually the proper dosage of the proper medication. 3. It's not necessary. Yes, it is. As I mentioned, ADHD is a biological disorder. The um the medication help with the production and help with the regulating of the levels of dopamine and the levels of norepinephrine in the person's brain to allow them to be able to get to that space where they can function as they would if they didn't have ADHD. And then from there they're able to start doing things like, hey, how do I work on a calendar? How do I work on I don't know, keeping up with a deadline? They're able to do they are better able to engage and follow through with their executive functioning, or their executive functioning is better when they are on the medication, and they're therefore able to engage in some of the activities that sometimes they miss. Which brings me to four, that the medication does not work. The medication works, but sometimes it takes more than just the medication. A lot of times, especially as the person gets older, if they have not learned the skills and not put the systems together to help them manage the symptoms, or to help them learn how to function efficiently as an adult, if they didn't learn certain skills as children, the medication may not necessarily may seem like it's not working, because the medication does not necessarily give you skills. The medication helps you get to a place where you can learn and build and develop skills. So if the person never learned how to manage, or how to manage a calendar, for example, taking the medication is not going to suddenly help them manage a calendar. Taking the medication gets them to a position where they can learn to manage a calendar. Taking the medication helps them get to a place where they can start learning how to stick with deadlines and do certain things. But a lot part of it is medication, but there is a large part that is also behavioral. That once the person is on the medication and they're getting to that place of where they're at that balanced, then they need to start learning the behavioral skills that they did not learn before. Five, that people take ADHD medication because they're too lazy to self-regulate, or parents give their children ADHD medication because they are too lazy to engage in good parenting. That couldn't be further from the truth. Parents of children with ADHD are working overtime figuring out how to help that child. And people with ADHD are working overtime working to catch up, working to get things right, working to just keep up with all the balls that are up in the air. They're not lazy. It's not lazy parenting. You do not you don't judge people for taking medication for all these other physical issues, all these other biological issues that society has deemed acceptable. So it's unfair that you would judge people, that you would shame people for taking medication that helps them get to a place where they can function more effectively, more efficiently as adults, as children, as humans. There's nothing wrong with taking the medication. What there is, however, a lot wrong with a society that makes it so hard for people to get the help that they need, because, some people are just not comfortable with it. Okay, let's do a quick recap. One, ADHD is definitely not a gateway drug, and it does not make a person more prone to addiction. However, society's shaming of ADHD medication has pushed people away from the prescribed medication, and in order to survive, a lot of them have turned to self-medicating with more illicit drugs, things like alcohol and other things that society accepts. Two, it does not turn the person into a zombie. The medication does not turn the person into a zombie. However, it does require that the person get the right dosage of the right medication for them to be able to function fully. And it sometimes, if they are over medicated, yes, it could lower their energy level way lower than they need it. ADHD medication is very much necessary for some people. In order for them to get to the point where they're able to engage in the behavior modifications that they need, a lot of people need to have that ADHD medication. Many people have tried to get off of it, but generally, some people need it. And for those people who need it, it's good that they take it. Or the medication works. The medication absolutely works. But unfortunately, the medication does not give you the skills that you didn't learn. So the medication works in getting you to a place where you can learn and develop and build those skills. But unfortunately, it's not a magic pill. It does not build skills for you. And finally, people who take ADHD medication, and parents who allow their children to take ADHD medication, don't do it because they're too lazy to parent. or they're too lazy to self regulate. They do it because the medication is a necessity. It's a necessity to help them get to the point where they can function fully and where they can do the things that they need to do. And, there's nothing wrong with taking the medication, but there is definitely something wrong with the society that makes it seem that something is wrong with taking medication. As always, if you or someone you know happens to be going through something that is more than you can handle, please remember that there are professionals like myself who are available, able, and willing to help, and are even providing remote services who can assist with whatever you may have going on. So please figure out who those people are in your community so that if you need them, you can reach out and get the help that you need. And that is all we have today. Good morning, world. Have an awesome day.